Good morning. It's a perfect day to be you. Think about it. What would make today a better day to be you than just it being today? Because about 2,000 years ago, there was this sacrifice that was made. And in Romans 8:11, it says, the same spirit that raised Jesus from the dead now dwells in you and gives life to your mortal body. So, what could make it a better day? If you've got God's Spirit dwelling in you this morning, might today be the greatest day ever? Might it be the day He does something unusual, unexpected, and amazing in and through you? I think so. What is natural anyway? I run in the woods all year long and I watch the cycle go on, and it is completely natural what happens. Today, if I go run, there will be green shoots popping up everywhere. There's greenness starting to show, and that's the natural thing that happens. But if I go, say, this time in October, it's the exact opposite. All those green things have turned brown and are falling off, and it's the way the things go. And so paying attention to what's natural makes life a lot better. But think about this. You were, and I know this may offend some of you, created in Adam's image, not God's image. Read it, it's in there. And it says you were a son of Adam or a daughter of Adam. But when you were born again, you were recreated in the image of God. And that image is the inner person, your spirit and your soul. Your spirit being your connectedness to God, your soul being your unique personality, your mind, will, and your emotions. Your body, this whole thing hadn't been recreated yet, but your inner person is perfect. It's natural for that thing to be selfless, considerate of other people. But we got this thing called the flesh, and the flesh are all these unnatural habits, these unnatural thoughts that are stored in this thing between my ears here, this piece of meat called a brain. These unnatural habits are selfish, and that's not who you are. You're selfless because you're in Christ. And so the selfish temptations that come our way, that's where the battle is. There's a battle between our ears for this selfishness that has been stored in our brain and tempted by our enemy, and the selflessness that is natural for those of us who are in Christ. So, what will make today a perfect day is to live selflessly. And that isn't always easy. There's temptations to just smack people in the head after they do things that are so ignorant and obnoxious. But we have this spirit dwelling in us. So, think about this. This is it was a contradiction I saw a few years ago, and then the more I thought about it, it makes more and more sense. It's in Philippians. Philippians, if you need a pep talk, Philippians is a great place to go. And I just wrote in my notes, it's natural for you to have a great attitude because you got the Spirit living in you. So just naturally, make it a perfect day today. You choose how your day is going to go about it. So I'm going to flip over to Philippians 3. And Paul's talking about in the beginning of the chapter is all these habits that are stored in his brain, um, this stuff the Bible calls fleshliness. He says, man, all these things I did, I was a rock star at doing this thing through my own strength. And then he says a little later after that, and I think if you use the King James, he says, I count all those successes I had as dung. That's his description, not mine. Um, in mine, in verse 7, he says, I count them as loss. He's a little more politically correct in the New American Standard Version. But then he goes down a little bit further, and he says in verse 11, he says that in order that I might attain to the resurrection of the dead, he's talking about he's going to get a new body. And he says, not that I've already obtained it or already become perfect, but I press on so that I may lay hold of that for which also I was laid hold of for Christ. He's saying that this body has not been made perfect yet. I've got this perfect inner man and this perfect personality that wants to express the perfection, the new creation that's in me through this body, but it ain't happening. But it doesn't discourage him. And he goes on a little bit and he says, I press onward toward the goal of the prize of the upward call of God in Christ Jesus. And then here it goes. This sounds very contradictory. He says, let us therefore, as many as are perfect, present tense, have this attitude that if anything you have a different attitude, God will reveal that also to you. He's saying this, I think, that your inner person is perfect. It's just not having a perfect time expressing it through your outer being. And so he's saying, have an attitude that I am perfect on the inside, and I'm going to walk by God's Spirit, not by these temptations of my flesh. And so he's saying, today is the day to have a great attitude because you've been made perfect through Jesus. You have the possibilities to live like a new creation because you are a new creation. 2 Corinthians 5, I think it's 17 says, if any man is in Christ, he's a new creation. And that's you, my friend. So make it a perfect day today, okay?